Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you are very well. You're welcome to this session where I will attempt to convince some of you that the time to act is now and not in the future. I have grown up being told by my parents that I had to prepare for my future. And at some point it seemed like a moving target, which it is. I have come to realize that the consequences of my actions then are evident in my life today. The human actions of yesterday are evident in the climate today, and the actions of today will determine what tomorrow will look like. As asset managers and engineers, we are pivotal in determining how the earth will look like in 2030, which is only 10 years from now. Some of us may still be living. However, it is no longer what our children will inherit. It is what we have inherited, and so we have to deal with it now. My name is Ssanyu Kaganzi. I am an electrical engineer by profession and the Chief Executive Officer at Asset Business Solutions. It is such an honor and privilege to be presenting to you a case for asset management and climate change. It is important that we begin with a working definition for climate change. And we can say that these are changes in global or regional weather patterns that persist over an extended period. A key addition to this is that they are attributed to human activity. And so as humans, we are at the center of this. And this is what it looks like. We have very intense storms. We have rising sea levels, and as you can see, this is the Statue of Liberty, and it is believed that some of these important landmarks could be lost to rising sea levels if the current global warming trends are maintained over the next 2 millennia. And these are people in Paris that are cooling off in the public pools. The consequences. This is back in my country, Uganda, where property worth millions was lost because of a flood. We have had forest fires going on for months in many parts of the world. And then we've also had mudslides. We've also experienced this in my country. As asset managers, we are engaged in coordinated activities, and our goal is to realize value from our assets. The purpose is sustainable service delivery. Climate change, however, is a threat to sustainable service delivery because it increases the risk of asset failure and therefore reducing service levels of existing infrastructure systems. Unfortunately, the action to mitigate this risk is very urgent. I would like to agree with Michael Salvatore, the asset management lead of Mott Donald, who said that climate change isn't a problem for future generations or something unfortunate that happens in poorer countries. It is here, it is now. The situation we find ourselves in is similar to that of COVID-19 in some parts of my country, where some people do not believe that it can have real impact. So we need to have more people on board to act now and not later. So a power generating company should seek to consistently generate power while putting into consideration the risks to the environment. There must be a balance between service, risk, and cost. What is important is that asset managers and engineers must be the ambassadors of this action. We must be at the forefront. This would mean that we need to rethink, re-engineer, manage, develop infrastructure that is smarter, more sustainable, and resilient. And that's the journey we need to persuade many others to join, those that are already involved both as individuals but also as leaders of organizations and designers of assets. What is the reality of climate change? These are some of the facts, past and future. One of the goals is to keep temperature increases at a maximum of 2 degrees by 2100. There is an indication that over 50% of global greenhouse gas emissions are through infrastructure. According to projections, by the end of 2020, the cost of getting global warming under control will hit $16 trillion, and by 2030, over $20 trillion. According to the International Energy Agency, every year we do not take the necessary action to stop climate change will add $500 billion to the cost of climate inaction by 2030. So the longer we wait, the more expensive. An estimate of the World Bank finds that climate change inaction could reduce global GDP by at least 5% annually, while the price of the necessary action is set to 1% of global GDP annually. One thing is for sure, if we do not take action now, climate change will cost us a lot of money and lives. You only have to watch the news to realize this. And we have had headlines like, India's wettest monsoon in 25 years replenishes reservoirs but kills 1,750 people. Near record melting of the Greenland ice sheet contributes 20% of global sea level rise. Second strongest Atlantic hurricane on record. Dorian ravages the Bahamas. The good thing is that asset managers and engineers are doing something using various approaches like the Internet of Things and intelligent assets, renewable energy, decarbonizing infrastructure using carbon capture technologies, using big data to understand Earth systems. My take is that efforts need to be emphasized within the asset management fraternity through discussions like this one and as part of asset management training curriculum. The impact of asset management on climate. The bottom line is asset management decisions will impact climate change in one way or another. Therefore, as asset managers, we need to look out for opportunities of reducing green gas emissions throughout the whole life cycle. That is to say, at planning, at design, construction, operation, maintenance, and decommissioning. The most obvious opportunities are during the planning and designing of new assets and renewed assets. Now, whereas asset management has an impact on climate change, the vice versa is also true. Climate change has an impact on asset performance and cost. We have had reservoir dams fail. We've had increased reliance on cooling systems, therefore increased energy use. There is soil instability, ground movement, slope instability, which leads to road damage from erosion, landslides, and drainage system failures. The real impact is that it becomes difficult to deliver the desired level of service to be able to meet stakeholder expectations. We need to realize that the most affected areas are transportation and water management systems, buildings, and marine infrastructure. This implies that as we plan, design, upgrade, or renew these systems, we need to put climate change into consideration. We also need to understand that insurance plays a major role in mitigating the risks of asset performance. However, climate change could have impacts that are currently not insurable. This is because insurance companies offer products that cover physical impact. However, some impacts of climate are not physical. A vivid example that comes to mind is a toll road. If an event of very low temperatures or very heavy rainfall occurred, this would mean people working from home closing schools, stopping events, just like it happened during the COVID-19 season, implying less movement on the road, hence significant reduction in revenue, which is not insurable in many parts. The ultimate solution is therefore to deal with climate changes. So what must we do? As part of corporate social responsibility, organizations need to consider adopting policies and charters and allocating resources to address the impact of climate change in the long run. Organizations need to make lasting commitment to address climate change by coming up with policies that address climate change. The province of British Columbia developed a climate action charter, and the commitment of the municipalities was 1. Becoming carbon neutral in their corporate operations. 2. Measuring and reporting their community's greenhouse gas emissions. 3. Creating complete, compact, and more energetic efficient communities. What is most important, though, is the genuine commitment by leadership. The second thing that organizations must do is that organizational strategic plans must incorporate climate change. And finally, organizations should consider integrating climate change response into their asset management plans. On the left is the British Columbia Asset Management Framework. The framework includes 3 main areas, that is, assess, plan, and implement. During the assessment phase, entities are required to 1. Identify the expected climate changes and their impact. The second thing is to assemble an interdisciplinary team to conduct the vulnerability assessment. Organizations need to identify which asset systems will be exposed to the various climate changes. They also need to identify asset vulnerabilities to climate changes. And finally, conduct an emissions inventory. Let me end with remarks from the Secretary General of the United Nations in this short video.
Today I'm appealing for leadership from politicians, from business and scientists, and from the public everywhere. We have the tools to make our actions effective. What we still lack, even after the Paris Agreement, is the leadership and the ambition to do what is needed. And what makes all of this even more disturbing is that we were warned. Scientists have been telling us for decades, over and over again. And far too many leaders have refused to listen. And far too few have acted with the vision the science demands. And we see the results. In some situations, they are approaching scientists' worst-case scenarios. The world's richest nations are the most responsible for the climate crisis, yet the effects are being felt first and worst by the poorest nations and the most vulnerable peoples and communities. Existing technologies are waiting to come online: cleaner fuels, alternative building materials, better batteries, and advances in farming and land use. And these and other innovations can have a major role in reducing greenhouse gas emissions so we can hit the Paris targets and inject the great ambition that is so urgently needed. Let us use the next year for transformational decisions in boardrooms, executive suites, and parliaments across the world. Let us raise our sights, build coalitions, and make our leaders listen. There is no more time to waste. As the ferocity of this summer's wildfires and heat waves shows, the world is changing before our eyes. We are careering towards the edge of the abyss. It is not too late to shift course, but every day that passes means the world eats up a little more and the cost of our inaction mounts. Every day we fail to act is a day that we step a little closer towards a fate that none of us want. A fate that will resonate through generations in the damage done to humankind and life on Earth. Our fate is in our hands. The world is counting on all of us to rise to the challenge before it is too late. I count on you all.
It is not for a few, but for all to take action. And as asset managers and engineers, we need to take the technical lead. The time is now. Organizations need to commit, and individuals need to recognize that they have a part to play. Thank you very much.